Hi, I'm Jeff from the INTJ equation, and today I'm joined by Rob, another INTJ. Uh, Rob, would you like to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, my name is Rob. So like we talked about earlier, I've been in MBTI for about 5 years or so. Started with this whole thing to try to figure out myself a little bit more, and saw potential when it came to personal growth. So I've gone in depth with it and try to figure out how I can use these concepts or these theories like of cognitive functions to not only just better understand myself, but at the same time um improve like in some places where like I'm weak on or like what I'm insecure of, and also better understanding myself. I mean, better understanding the other people.
And you also write a blog, correct? Would you like to tell the people a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a little project that I do for myself, and it's on Medium, so you can look at robdin at .medium.com. Rob, ROB Din, DINH. And what it is really about is we start to see a whole bunch of basically a whole bunch of bullshit that's out there in MBTI. There's a lot of memes that are out there. It's been pretty much a huge joke. I like to call it the meme BTI, just because it's all meme driven now. Like there used to be a few like maybe personality research or whatever. I'm not exactly too much on academics of that kind of stuff, but there were some people that were putting some serious work in developing more theories about personalities. And maybe it's the advent of the internet. I'm not sure. I've heard that it's always been kind of a thing. Um, People always want to try to discover themselves more, and they don't have any exact tools for it unless they go see a therapist. So what we're seeing in MBTI is it's becoming like WebMD, where everybody just kind of consults online to sort of self-diagnose themselves, and they'll see a whole bunch of false information. So a lot of stereotypes came to emerge from all of these, a lot of false information, which I thought was very detrimental to not just INTJs, but like all the other 15 types. And I felt like that would actually hurt their own development, because at least for a lot of us who are in MBTI, we're all here to try to, do self-growth. And a lot of the folks who just started to discover recently now have been at least kids in relative age. So I'm 37 now. A lot of them are 17, 18, just about to figure themselves out a little bit, and they read these stereotypes and they find themselves like in this box. That's just totally the opposite of what the whole concept was meant to be. So there was urgency in that for me. And another full of all of that is I'm trying to not be an INTJ. That's like my mind, I believe, has all 16 types, and we're all just at least you and me, we're just consciously INTJ. But we could be 15 other types if we try to, because we're interested in the truth, but we can only see one side of the truth as INTJ. If one event happens and it was like all 16 other types that looked at it, they all got interpreted in different ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of like maybe the truth is sort of the culmination of all 16 types, then maybe, because I'm seeing it one way, but I'm not seeing it on other 15 sides. So my own type, my own thinking, my own default way of processing is not exactly true, then, is what I thought. So yeah, here I am, trying to develop through many different ways and research on like what the other 15 types are. And each blog post is dedicated to to a certain type. I have 4 out now. I'm making my 5th one right now. It currently is the ESTP. And a lot of you, what you'll notice in the blogs is I'm trying to break it down into what the stereotypes are, what's false, and then what what at least what I think is what they really are, and how do I get along with them, like how me as INTJ with my cognitive functions match with theirs. I draw this contrast so I can see like what I'm lacking and then what I admire about the other types, to sort of draw this bridge on how I can bring their functions conscious in my mind.
Okay. Yeah. So you said that you tested INTJ on MBTI or MBTI like test, and you tested INTJ pretty consistently, right? That hasn't been my experience exactly.
Yeah, maybe 80-85% I'm INTJ. And these tests tend to be very dependent on what your mood is during the day.
Yeah.
I've been tested as INTP, ENTP. I never had INFJ though, so those are definitely it. It looks like I'm definitely some kind of NT.
Yeah, like I said, I was telling you before we started rolling here. Like I've tested, I think 4 times total in my life, and 2 times was INTJ, and one time I was like INFP or INFJ and INTP. So I was kind of like really skeptical of it in the beginning, and I kind of just heard like the vague descriptions of an INTJ. Like, yeah, that definitely resonates with me, but it's not really enough information to be helpful. But then I read like INTP and INFJ. That doesn't really sound like me. I guess INFJ does kind of in ways, and maybe INTP even a little bit. But then, I just kept hearing like other information and more in-depth information, and it started making more sense. So, can you describe what it's like being an INTJ in your experience?
At least from what I understand about being an INTJ, it obviously you're somebody who likes to spend a lot of their time in their heads, and what I'm actually doing in my head, or like this dialogue, this monologue I have, is I look outside, and if we're doing type speak, then I have extroverted sensing and extroverted thinking, which is trying to be aware about what's going on outside, and you sort of map out what the sort of like the superstructure systems are out there, right? How are things logistically constructed, and where do I fit in there? So I'm not just like in this location, but I also work at certain companies, and this is where I fit in this world. Now with introverted intuition and intuitive feeling, I tend to always ask, well, what if I could be somewhere else? Or more like, how can I further improve my situation? And I look at all these systems are constantly moving, and I'm sort of like this item, or like this ego, sort of like this like a rat in a maze. Basically, I can see where the exit is of this maze, or maybe where I want to be in a maze, and I give myself like these directions of where it is. Like there's like this target of where I want to go, and I can see where do I need to turn to get to it. In the end, I'm just trying to position myself with the highest chance for whatever I define success or happiness.
Okay, I think you talked about it a little bit. Can you describe how your NI works? I mean, mine is like a guiding light, kind of like a voice in my head that kind of tells me if I'm on the right path or if I'm not. And of course, I sit there and just can daydream on hours of it and kind of think of future possibilities and run scenarios through my head until I find like an optimal way. And of course, I got to test it with my TE, use my FI to kind of guide to see if it's morally encompass with my beliefs. And Got to bring it out in the world with the SE, I guess.
Yeah, it's more or less sort of the same idea. NI is a lens, right? Just like sensing is also a lens. What it is specifically is that it's an internal lens that looks at a really big, wide picture of of who I am, intuitive feeling. So there's NI that's looking at intuitive feeling, basically. So NI and FI, and it looks at different areas of what I could be or who I am. There's a lot of people who are like, I am this and I am that. For me, it's like I don't really define myself too much in this. I don't really find myself too much in that. I am me, which is sort of like the culmination of this and that. And there's always going to be all these dimensions that keep on adding. Like, here I am in this situation today, and I have this goal where I want to be somewhere else. Maybe I want to earn more. Maybe I want to be happier or be in a certain state, or reach some kind of goal. And the only way I can figure this out is not just looking at my whole self, but how do I compare myself with the outside, which is with SCNTE. Where am I there? Where am I actually at right now? So NI is what gives me like what enlightens certain sides of who I am or who I want to be, actually, and then I sort of extroverted it out to realize it.
Okay. I think you touched on a little bit too. My next question was just kind of how like your decision making process is like if you have like an obstacle in your way, how do you get around it? Do you go through it? You kind of like just peel it with your TE, kind of just get little piece by piece and dissect it?
Yeah, probably the last part, which is analyze and dissect it. I like to call it like quote unquote the game. Where am I in this game? Am I winning in this game? Like, or what are the rules of it? What do I need to do to get to the next level, or wherever I need to be on this map of this game? So you sort of start to analyze, whatever this quote unquote maze is, where the turns are, where the traps are, what strategy, I guess, what sort of path you need to go on this maze. That kind of you figured all this out with TE. So I want to be somewhere, and I don't exactly know where or how I want to get to it first. So you analyze all of that, right? You analyze this game, or this, you come out with this whole map that you're seeing, and it at the end it's just sort of, okay, well, I'm just gonna make the most sensible decision, right? Just to give it like a quick and dry example, if I want to be, if I want to make more money and I'm not happy about where I'm at right now when it comes to my salary, then I go ahead and look at myself and see how I can make myself worth more. What's the strategy to do that? Do I need to earn more skills? Do I need to change jobs? Do I need to push through and actually ask for a promotion, etc. So a lot of that is to dissecting and analyzing. And then once I'm done with all of that, then I can either push through it or work around it, or say, this is bullshit. I'm gonna like sort of bowl myself through like a ENTJ or an ESFP would.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like we're just kind of in our own heads a little bit too much, and we kind of just need to get out of our heads and do some action. I think that's kind of one of the biggest flaws of an INTJ. What would you say like your strengths and your flaws are as an INTJ?
The strength is definitely the analytical part. Just analyzing the plans and the strategies. The weakness, in a way, I guess, is sort of the same thing, right? It's like your strengths are also your weaknesses. You spend a lot of time as an INTJ. You'd rather just do the analyzing and strategizing, that you tend to not leave that much energy left for actually doing it. Or you look at something, you're like, maybe there could be a more efficient way of doing this, and you just go through this whole loop of not just analyzing, but at this now you're basically daydreaming of where you want to be. So ironically, if you strategize too much, it becomes less of a strategy and more, just more fruitless daydreaming.
Yeah, good. Stuck in analysis paralysis, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. In a way, yeah. Analysis paralysis when it comes to, okay, I'm not exactly sure if I have this correct, or I'm not exactly confident about this whole thing yet. So you just keep on analyzing until your introverted feeling feels okay with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the end, it's INTJs. They run on confidence, really, right? Like for me, I always say, oh, it's just gonna be a matter of time until I feel good about doing this.
And do you ever discuss your plans beforehand with somebody else? I know, like, if I try to say something that's just so abstract and out there, like, I'll just have this vision like 10, 20 years down the road. And like you said, you don't know exactly how you're going to get there. You just kind of have this vision, then you just take action and the path lights up as you go. You ever get like dismissed by people because of any crazy out ideas or anything like that?
No. I mean, most of the ideas that I have is, I guess, pretty realistic to say. And that's one of the things I try to make sure is that my dreams are not only realistic, but you can actually envision them, right? I'm not gonna say I'm gonna become president of the United States, for example. Like, that's just not what I want to do, right? A lot of it has to value, like, I want to be able to help with my parents retire well, for example, you know and then you look around and you're like, okay, this is going to be really hard because there's people like you and me in our age, where we have those problems on our own too. We don't even know if we can retire, right?
Yeah.
um you know we have the housing market going up and 401k is going down the shit or whatever, and everything else. Like, how can I do that for myself plus taking care of my parents, right? So this is where all this strategy comes from. Then it's like, okay, I'm gonna earn money. I have to earn more money. I have to do this and that and that and that. And it's something I can envision, right? It's envision where that's actually concrete. So this is where we can use extroverted sensing in a way, right? Like NI and SC are in the same continuum here. And
Mm-hmm.
NI just kind of goes, what if I can do this? And SC gives you a vision for you to kind of tunnel vision yourself out, basically, right? So I can see myself helping my parents and do all of this, with all of this plan and strategies.
Okay, so let's talk about your childhood and stuff, if you don't mind talking about that. You said you grew up in France. Were you like a military kid, or were you just born in France?
Oh yeah, I was just born in France. Yeah, my dad is Cambodian. My mom is Laotian. So they're from two countries that are right next to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
So just to make it pretty easy, my family has been wholly affected by the Vietnam War, and whatever the wars happened in Laos and Cambodia back in the 70s. Um, they're lucky enough that they were able to get out of there, basically. Um, so they met in France and raised a family there. That's where I come from. So that's the background I have. And I am actually in a pretty big family, so that family just said, "Hey, let's get the hell out of our place right now because it's a fucking war zone. We don't know where to go, right? But
Yeah.
at least we could afford it. At least we have the opportunity to. So let's just get out." And I don't know how they found themselves. I don't know how they find their friends and all, but they all do. These immigrants. I'm not exactly sure how they do it, right? But me, I'm a Western kid. I was born in France, and I don't know shit about the war. And that means half of my family is in France, and the other half was in Boston, in the U.S. eventually we've all reunited to the United States. So I've been here since '97.
Okay. Do you know what type your parents are? Have you ever took the time to type them? Sure you have.
A little bit. It's not something I've done very much. Just in my adulthood, I've been living by myself, so it's actually pretty rare to actually see them. And it gets a little harder when people are old too, right? Because they start to center themselves better, right? So maybe my dad used to be one way, but now that he's older and wiser and also more restricted in terms of energy, then it's a little harder. I would say he's probably maybe an ESFP, maybe an ISFP. My brother is more like an ISFP. So we got two or three gammas in a family now. My mom, my mom probably an ISFJ, but then that seems very typical for a mom, right? It's like I'm imagining that. But yeah, I mean, she always showed me like there's always a better way of doing things. So that to me has always been pretty TIFE. And my dad and me we're pretty much the same thing. If anything, he's more action oriented than I am. I'm more cerebral than he is. So that's what gives me this guess that he probably has the same functions than I do, just stacked a little differently.
Yeah. I know you recently wrote a blog article on ESFPs. What is your experience like with ESFPs?
It's always been fun to hang out with them. That's for sure. And it's not only in parties either. ESFPs are really good about telling how they feel. And that's kind of like their thing, really, right? It's like this is who I am, and I am going to build my world around who I believe who I am, right? So if there are people who find themselves to be like I'm a hardworking person, then they're gonna show it to you that they're hardworking people, right? And vice versa, and and so on. They could be smart, it could be whatever. However they hold themselves into, that's what they are. They mold their whole world around it, and they have like tangible proof and evidence to show it for. So for me, that's always been something I've always wanted to do, right? That's what I do in my head, right? Like INTJs with an INFI, we always just think about what we could be all the time. And here's the ESFPs who are actually spending that time to try to become whoever they think they are. So there's this continuum basically, right? Like I could switch it to an ESFP, like at the end of the day, I daydreamed enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to leave some energy so I can actually get shit done, right? So I've always looked at ESFPs in a very bright light. Like they're the type of people I want to be. I do believe we should round ourselves up. So we're one type and we should try to become another type. So INTJs and ESFPs are on the same axis where all you do is just flip the stack upside down. And yeah, that's kind of what I admire the most, really, is that they basically just try to prove themselves every day. But for me, it's like I'm trying to see who I am every day. So the difference here is that they already know who they are, and that's not gonna be compromised, right? Well, for me, it's always, well, what if I could be this, or what if I could be that? So for me to try to turn into an ESFP, then it's almost like, okay, my whole identity work is already done, right? Like, let me try to make this static and render this out. Like, this is who I am, and this is what I'm gonna do to show to myself, who I think I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like proof to myself, basically. So yeah, ESFPs, they're all, at least in my experience, go-getters. They've always followed the whole quote of actions speak louder than words. And it's always nice to hear about how they feel, because they always have all these aspirations, and you can see them burn out a lot too. Like they jump from careers to careers, or like even relationship to relationship, maybe, right? And I'm talking for like a standard developing in ESFPs, right? It's you can see the burnout from them, and for me, it's like, this is what I would have done too, but it's all already played in my head. Um, I'm trying to find the one path so I don't have to go through whatever you did in real life. Yeah. so I love to listen what they have to say, because at least it helps me like conserve this external energy for myself.
Yeah, both my parents were ESFPs, and it wasn't the best upbringing, I don't think. Like you were talking about the gamma quadra and quadras and socionics. They say like that ESFP INTJ relationship is like the ideal one. I just totally disagree with that. Like I don't have anything against the ESFPs. I think we just kind of perceive the world in totally different ways, and I think we can frustrate each other really easy. I mean, I can definitely learn a lot from ESFPs. I learned a lot from my ESFPX, kind of like just how to be more in a moment, like you're saying, like they're just kind of know who they are and do what they want to do and don't look back. We're kind of the opposite. We're kind of a little hesitant to be who we are. I think a lot of that's because we're just so rare, and we just don't really have anybody to kind of bounce ideas off, really, or kind of have any camaraderie with, because our way of thinking is just so different from everybody else. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting dynamic, and I am learning judo from some ESFPs at this dojo I just recently signed up. And you said you did some karate and judo yourself, right? Is that something you did in France, or is that something here you did in the States?
Yeah, it was in France. My dad always wanted to have me and my brother to be affiliated or involved in martial arts. He was a judo instructor himself, and later also became a jiu-jitsu instructor. I was never under his wing. He always promised, when you're old enough, then you can come to my class. But it never happened. We moved to the US, and those endeavors were gone. But yeah, judo and karate is how I started. I guess my SC journey, maybe. So in a way, kind of like you're saying how you can exercise your SE function just through not thinking, really. It's just be in a moment and do whatever the world kind of gives you, right? Just like dance with it, basically. So you have judo, there's gonna be a lot of grappling and physical activity going on with that, but you're not thinking about what happens sort of 20 steps ahead. You're just looking what's really right in front of you,
Yeah.
and sort of almost instinctually figure out what the best decision is, right, to do. Like you might want to pivot this one way, or you want to do a certain move or whatever. So yeah, for me it's kind of the same thing. I started this way. I started young. I played soccer in France, and then tried to fit in as an American kid, played football and basketball. Do a lot of weightlifting, but yeah, that's pretty much all I have when it comes to sports. Do I think that it has helped me develop my extroverted sensing? Maybe. I would say extroverted sensing, it's a little different. It's not just about playing sports, right?
Yeah.
It's actually a hyper focus, is what SC looks like for an INTJ. And this hyper focus is like this highly sensitive thing where instead of having this really broad scope that you usually have at resting, now you're really exercising it. Now you just have this tunnel vision, and that looks really far. It's like laser focus, but everything else around it, you're blind to, right? It's hard to multitask, for example. Like I'm a terrible multitasker. If somebody bothers me, it's like, no, I can be bothered. Like I'm in this, I'm in this thing right now. You gotta have to bother me later. And that's kind of like the same thing, right? When you play sports, in a way, right? It's like, you're focused on trying to whatever you need to do, without thinking too much.
Yeah, that's kind of what I like about the physical aspect of it. It's just like you have to be in the moment. If you trail off the moment, then you're gonna get thrown or you're gonna get submitted. You just kind of have to stay there and not wander. So it kind of helps focus me. I know it was interesting earlier, just to go back a little bit, like how you said like you're kind of inspired to be an ESFP. Have you heard about like the multiple sides of the mind theory, and that like you said like the INTJ stack mirrors the ESFP stack, and we kind of there's a theory that we want to jump into our ESFP side of the mind, and that's who we aspire to be, and that's how we find true happiness. Kind of like, being an INTJ is kind of like great and all, but we want to be that more gregarious, outgoing person who kind of known for our skills and our, I guess, charisma and that sort of way. Do you ever have like a feeling like that?
Oh yeah, yeah, all the time. And yeah, I'm familiar with Joseph's foresight of the mind thing. I would actually even expand on it that we have 16 different sides. But four sides is simple enough for now, right? And they tend to be each side that are reachable from your starting point of where your ego is as INTJ. ESFP is it's subconscious, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And what it actually means is that you have the same functions. So your functions are conscious right now, but they're just going to be stacked a little differently, right? From INTJ to ESFP, making it subconscious. And yeah, I've always had, like, I'm an engineer right now, and a lot of it's because I like math and make some money, and it's great because I can just be behind a keyboard all day and just do these things. But I do have silly dreams, like I want to be a DJ. you know I want to be able to how to sing and how to dance better, doing all these things where I look from afar. I have ESFP friends, and it's just like they look like they're just having fun. Like, I want to have fun, shit.
Yeah.
And like, for them, it's like they don't even think, so they just go straight to it. And they're just like real straight shooters. Like, I've always thought of myself as a straight shooter, right? Like, but what happens really is that there's a lot of working behind the straight shooting part for INTJs. They just want to have that one best, most efficient and beneficial shot, I guess. Where we're sniper shooters compared to ESAPs, who are more like close range brawlers, probably, right? Maybe. And so it's like I can talk to myself and say I'm a straight shooter, but I spent a lot of my time not shooting at all.
Yeah.
So um so I want to shoot more. Basically, I just want to keep saying fuck it, I'm just gonna do it. And not having to think about if if I'm gonna look bad or whatever, right? It's uh I shouldn't, right? So I started to develop this kind of thing where it's like, I've thought a lot already, right? Most INTJs, they probably are, in a group where they're the ones that has thought the most already. So what's the point about thinking even more, right? Just say fuck it and do whatever you like to do. It's gonna work out itself anyways.
I think that's one thing that we can teach ESFPs is kind of like they're always in the moment. They don't think of the next step, and that kind of comes and bites them in the ass. I think that's just something they're insecure about, is kind of like their own future. So they just kind of stay in the moment and kind of pretend like it doesn't exist. Have you ever had that experience with ESFPs at all, where they're kind of like they're just thinking about now and not even 10 minutes from now?
um yeah, when I was younger, for sure. When you were younger, they were just gonna go chase the next shiny thing. um but yeah, as you get older, at least for ESFPs, I start to notice they do think a lot more holistically at this point. They do realize, after event after event and day after day, they do look back and be like, what was the point of all of this, right? Like, I'm getting burnt out so easily. I wish to be in this place where I can still be myself, but at the same time, you know make it a little bit more long term. So you can start to see the ESFPs that I'm acquainted with, where they're starting to activate a long term view. um, and well, what you notice is they're actually not that much different than us. They're people that always just wanted to maximize their potential,
Mhm.
right? They've always believed in themselves. I mean, they have to, right, to do the kind of to do the kind of stuff that they do at their pace. You kind of have that. You kind of need to have that confidence that you can be anything you want to be, and they just run in a different time clock that we do. Basically, like we work in 10 years arcs, maybe. Well, they're more like day by day, and that's really the only difference. They treat each day just like how it's like the last, and for us, it's more like I don't want to be. I hope that I'm closer to where my goal is, or however I plan. 10 years down the road. So there's definitely a lot of benefits to hang out with them.
Okay, so do you ever like experience anything where it's like really difficult being an INTJ? Did you ever just not fit in with people, or were you always like had a better upbringing where you're kind of like nurtured into it and like people kind of just accepted you for who you are?
No, when I was younger, not really. I was always the more logical one, or I was always the quiet, the introvert, all of that. And I guess it's not necessarily just INTJs, but there was these combinations of things. Like you're quiet, you're logical, and you look like you're always gonna have your head above your shoulders kind of person, and that made me feel either special or at least different from people. Um, and I've always felt like that was like, okay, well, that's what makes me different. That's what will be my strength, and that's how I've made a lot of decision based on just like sort of identify as this one quiet, analytical person. Um, and that was before like MBTI and everything. And until I got into MBTI, and it's like, okay, well, that makes sense. If I'm this type, then it totally describes like who I am. And hey, shit, I'm not that crazy actually. There's definitely other INTJs out there that probably think the same way. I might actually have come across some and not even know. Um, and that I mean that's where the journey kind of started. Um, so I start to see, okay, there's also drawbacks about being who I am then, right? Like when you read the descriptions, there's things like, you don't have FE, you don't have TI, and all the other functions that you're probably not that conscious of is gonna be biting you in the ass someday, somehow. So I saw a lot of that also makes sense. Like I was never really good with people. Um, not saying I don't know how to make friends or anything, but there was just like I was not able to get along, or I couldn't stand a lot of people. Like I was like, man, I don't like to deal with people. They're too unpredictable kind of way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so somewhere as I was getting older, I started to see, okay, that's probably not how I want to go down in my life, right? Um, I don't want to just keep hating people anymore. I don't want to just keep feeling this stress all the time, right? If I'm this kind of person who has constantly been daydreaming who I could be, and start to realize, shit, I can't be in any of these things if I keep hating people or keep hating everything that is around me. That's then I start to see myself contradicting here, right? um I feel like that's a typical INTJ growing up in a way. um so that's kind of the path I had, and I said, okay, that's not what I want to become. That's It looks like this is where my life would be leading to if I'm not changing my own attitude about it. So yeah, circling back about why I'm writing those blogs, um, how I can start to see other types in a positive light.
Yeah, I think that's a really healthy thing to do. What age did you come to realization like, okay, in order to reach my goals, I have to be more adaptable and I have to interact with people? Did you come to that conclusion pretty early? I know some of us it's later in life. Like for myself, it was a lot later in life for me.
Um, I mean, yeah, it started early. But there was definitely some changes of how I looked into it, because yeah, I could say, yeah, I need to be adaptable. That's like one of those things where you read about, 5 tips about successful people or whatever, and there's always one of them that says you have to be adaptable. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna try to become adaptable. So let me be open-minded. Let me learn to listen and all that kind of stuff. Um, and that's something that I've been doing, for a long time now. And ever since I've spent more time with MBTI, it's like, okay, there's actually a whole different level of being open-minded now. Um, like I started to see that even though I claim myself to be open-minded, I'm only open-minded in a certain view that I'm open-minded for. I started to see what I'm not. Like I used to say, yeah, I'm not logical, or I'm not this, I'm not that, or whatever. And you start to see, okay, there's definitely a lot more that of what I'm not than what I am. And I am proud about who I am, and all, and that actually put me into a box.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So ironically, when I say to myself, oh yeah, I'm very open-minded, I'm definitely not closed-minded. You actually are become closed-minded doing this way, because you're restricting yourself. So I've been working on trying to erase those borders, see what I feel like I'm not, and try to embrace them better, or try to embrace those qualities better.
Yeah, for sure. What was it like being an INTJ in France? I know you were pretty young when you moved, compared to like being an INTJ in the States, or even like West Coast, East Coast sort of thing. You said you lived in Boston for some time, then you moved to San Francisco.
Mm, yeah, it's interesting. So let's if we break it down in type speak, I was in a different place in a different stage of my life, right? So
Mhm.
SET tells you you can't compare, being in France, and you can't compare being in Boston, um, because they were just different stages of your life, right?
Yeah.
However, that gets counterbalanced with NINFI, which says you're the same. I've been the same Rob, uh, throughout all stages of my life. And that's kind of how I see myself. I feel like I've always been the same person. Um, but obviously things have changed about who I am, but I never lose sight of, whatever that weird essence is that makes you conscious, I guess. Things I believed, things I didn't believe, those change. And maybe from the outside, somebody will say, yeah, you're a totally different person now. But I do hope that, they could see it just as clearly as I could see it. Is that I'm still this little essence, in my head. There's something about me that's more than just a meat bag and bones. Um, and that's what I hope to have people realize, because I can do this all day for myself, and I think most INTJs can. But that's not gonna sell to other people. Like you get tired about being misunderstood, for example, and like I get tired about it, because I could always give like a deadpan straight answer or something, and people will always take it the wrong way, and you could blame me on a lack of FE or something, and that's what I got tired of. I'm like, hey, I know who I am, and this is who I am, like since I've been conscious about who I am. And I just got tired about being misunderstood or misinterpreted, and so I had to find ways to um, market or project that out, about who I think I actually am, right? So like I think I'm a funny person. I think I'm a good person, and so I took lengths in learning how to portray that, right? Like I think one of those memes that says about INTJs was that it's hard for us to smile, for example,
Mm-hmm.
right? And yeah, I definitely remember those stages of my life where I'm like, why do I need to fucking smile on a picture, right? This picture means nothing.
Yeah.
right? Like I feel however I feel right now, and it's just, that's just what it is. And if I smile, then there's always something in my head that says, oh, it's just society that is like teaching you to smile because of blah blah blah, right? um and yeah, I mean, I look at my old pictures and it's just, that's a fake smile. Or I look at some of the pictures where I felt like, okay, this is what actually authentically portrays me, or at least in this emotional state that I am, which is one that's not smiling. Like, yep, this is me. And I look back at it and be like, yeah, I'm much happier now than I used to be. And there's this thing where uh, intuitive feeling for INTJs is like in this possessive position.
Hmm.
um and it's always hard to let go of that. There's a lot of pride around it. Like, we always tell people you're responsible for your own feelings, because that's what we are. We're responsible for ours, and we don't like to dole it out to other people. We don't like to be emotional dead weight to other people. We just carry it ourselves on our own. And that's what made us sort of emotionless on the outside, because we spend a lot of that energy on the inside, so it doesn't come out as much, right? Like we just always have a straight face, but in the end, but deep inside, where there's a lot of chaos going on, right? um so I always got tired of this dichotomous thing, like, my inner world and the outer world just seems totally different. So how do I bridge all of that? And there's a lot of things I had to do. Like, I felt like it was silly in the beginning, like, use emojis and you know uh try to actually smile more, like consciously add more to smile, or consciously try to smile more, um and really really pay attention, and what actually makes you happy, so that you can authentically actually be happy and come out with a smile that's actually like true and real.
Yeah, it's just so hard for me. I'm usually like, everyone thinks I'm mad. I'm just kind of in a neutral mood, really. And I can't really pick up like when other people are smiling. They say smiling is contagious. Just for me, it just isn't. I
Yeah.
see somebody smile, I'm like, I just don't pick it up. Did you ever get the label of like you're autistic or you're a sociopath or psychopath or anything like that?
um a couple of times when I was younger, for sure. um but it's always been kind of a joking manner, but at the same time you're like, is there some truth to it? I've always had this thought, like, am I kind of a sociopath or something, or not? And that kind of worries you a little bit. At least it did for me. uh One of the comments was, if you think that you're a sociopath, you're probably not. So I kind of took that and made peace with it. um and it it is part of, like, are people really misinterpreting me? And that just added on more to it, because I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure I'm not a sociopath. Like, I know that I care a lot, and it's actually a real good compliment when somebody realizes how much I care.
Yeah.
um so it became this whole journey then to actually show that I actually care. Because I could be, oh yeah, I'm logical and I'm this and this and that, but I've never said that I was a caring person out loud, right? Like, I just felt like it was just supposedly implicit, I guess, right? Until I actually showed that I care. So I've looked at high feeling people like ENFJs or INFPs and all that, and see how they sell their moods and how they sell their emotional state, um, so that I could stop being misinterpreted all the time. Because yeah, it does suck that SETE just by itself, like, our function is a very dry and boring external world, and we show that in our faces. um and it's just like, maybe we should stop doing that, because we're definitely short selling ourselves.
Mhm.
Because there's a whole world inside of us that's like, to me, is like real rich, and that, I believe should benefit people. At least that's what makes me feel like I'm a good person, right? Like
Yeah.
it was an honor, or like, you had fun, or you had special time with me, because I showed my true self. Um, so it does round back to, this is what being an ESFP is, right? Like they just show who they are. Um, so that's just what I want to do. Is, you know I'm I'm tired about being misunderstood, and I realize that my feelings are not going to sell themselves.
Okay, yeah, we're coming up here on the hour. Just got a few more questions to ask. What is your favorite type and your least favorite type?
Yeah, so that question was a little hard. I've made peace with all the types. I think they're great on their own, but just for the sake of the conversation, obviously anybody that's healthy is going to be a favorite type. Currently, right now, is INTP and ESTP. Those are just currently the ones I'm quote unquote fetishizing. Like I'm fetishizing their functions, or like how they're stacked, so I can become more of them, like more like them, right? Being an INTP means you gather knowledge for the sake of gathering knowledge, and I was always like, I'm only gonna gather knowledge for as far as it's useful to me. Um, but that's not what an INTP does. They gather knowledge because that's like their currency to connect with people. So when I realized that, it's like, hey, I want to connect with people too, and being an NT just like them, I'm gonna try to do all of this where I'm gonna keep some knowledge to not only to myself, but it could be useful to somebody else. ESCP is about the same way. ESCP is all about pushing what they believe. So they have like some kind of mantra that they follow, and they try to push it on to other people, to make the world better around them. So that's like what I'm trying to do too. Least favorite, just obviously anybody that's not healthy. And being INTJ is my least favorite type. And that's just more of a mindset. It's more like I'm trying to outgrow this type. And because I believe we're all in a tight grip. Kind of like you've probably heard of the SC grip, right? Like you're in this grip and using SE. I believe we're in a tight grip, rather. Like it's hard for us to let go using NI. It's hard for us to let go using TE. And and FI and SE, if you have those developed. If you really want to develop yourself, as you have to get out and be outside of that, being an INTJ.
Okay, last few questions. What would you like others to know to understand you better as an INTJ?
I'm just trying to be happy. That's really the end all of it. Like I want to look back and be 90 years old and say I've done the best I could on this earth. I don't really care too much about legacies or whatever. It's just like the only truth I know. Like I don't even know if we're all in this simulation or whatever, right? There's only one truth that I know, is that I am me, and I'm just trying to be the best at that. Now everything else, it's like I don't know. I have my morals, but who knows if it's right? Like I could have been born 500 years later, and the set of morals are going to be different. Pluto used to be a planet, right?
Yeah.
There's like all these historical facts and scientific facts too that could change. So where do you hold on then? Like where is your ground for when it comes to truth and morals? It could change when you see it that way. It seems like nothing much really matters then. But at least what matters is you're alive and you're here, and that's just how I think about it.
Okay, last question. What would you like to understand more about others?
Those are questions that kind of related to the blog as well. I like to hear from others, like how they define themselves. Like, what makes you unique? What makes you an individual of who you are? Because if you're an extrovert, does that mean that your ego is more placed on others and you're empty inside? Like, what does it mean, right? Because I love to hear more from others in a type speak kind of way. And how you does like your inner self sounds like. And I would love to push back to you actually, like what does a dialogue to yourself sounds like, and if that dialogue to yourself, does it have a certain type, or do you think it's just another INTJ talking to an INTJ?
What do you mean exactly? Like me and you talking to each other, or just how I talk to myself?
Talk to yourself.
I think that varies. Just depends on my mood or if I'm feeling discouraged or anything like that. That's a good question. I never really thought about it. I mean, I really just like I try to push myself to be more of a ESFP subconsciously, like we're discussing, but sometimes I could push myself too hard. So I just need to kind of be myself. So I think it's really just a balance. Like you just got to find your own balance and find your own, like, just trying to be happy. You just got to find your own place in the world and your own niche, I guess. And it's really a matter of just, yeah, I guess balance. It's got to balance yourself out. Like you still got to be in your NI. It's just a part of who we are. We still got a daydream. That's just kind of like our bread and butter, so we can't really deny that aspect of us, but we got to do more than that.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I'm trying to come up with a theory, but I'm not sure if it really works yet. I feel like the dialogue that I have to myself, like if I was just talking to myself, like talking to a mirror, um, right now it sounds like an ENTP. Like the whole meme about ENTPs, they're like instigators or like they're debaters or something. I feel like I do that to myself. Like I always debate against myself, right? Like I just want to make sure that the facts are right. I want to make sure whatever I'm doing is, I'm seeing the whole big picture. So that's kind of like what an ENTP does, right?
Yeah,
To ensure that everybody's got their facts straight and everything. Now I wonder if that's a theory we can talk to ourselves, like an ENTJ, for example, might look at themselves like an INTP if they talk to themselves, or vice versa. An INTP talks to themselves, and that themselves in a mirror sounds like an ENTJ. I wonder if there's like some kind of reflective thing going on.
that's interesting you say that, because our shadow side by this one theory is our ENTP shadow. So we're very critical of ourselves, and we're always super hard on ourselves and push ourselves really hard. And an ENTJ and INTP, they're each other's shadow too. Gotta double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's their own shadow
Yep.
type. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're about out of time here. I really enjoyed the conversation. Do you want to remind the audience of your project again? I'll definitely put it in the description down below.
Yeah. So again, my project is to try to write a blog post for each type about how I get along with them as an INTJ. It's all about trying to bridge each type with myself, and also trying to integrate them into my being. I believe that we actually have 16 types, and we're only conscious of one right now. So it's still an ongoing project. I only have 4 out. We're working on my 5th for ESTP, and you can look that up at robdinh, ROBDINH.medium.com.
All right. Well, thank you, Rob, for joining us. Maybe we can get together and do this again some other time. Just some quick plugs of my own. You can go to my website. I have a blog as well, intjequation.com. Also, I have a YouTube channel, obviously, where I'll post this, and then I also uploaded it recently on podcast.com. So hopefully this podcast can reach a wider audience. And I'm also been making a few YouTube videos here. So everything will be in the description below, including Rob's project. So yeah, if you have any questions, just hit us up. Thank you for going beyond the clickbait, and have a great day.